according to the computer.
How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? You get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use the scientific method in fantasy football. And here's the two cool things about that, folks, is we come from two very different scientific pursuits. And while the scientific method is applied in both meteorology and in biology, we might get there a little bit different. Just like this year in fantasy football, the professor and I are going to get to our main draft season a little bit different as well. And joining me as he does each and every week, he is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor. Hey, PhD is a big deal, folks. Mm-hmm. That means you're really, really smart, or it means you just didn't want to work in the real world. It's John Bush. John, we are very much approaching this preseason, this pre-draft season in two different ways, and I think it's going to pay off for us.
Yeah, I'm kind of staying in the research data cave and digging on topics and building data sets. Got our posters ready to print for the expo. So I'm deliberately not chasing every squirrel that's in the backyard. Okay, Dennis, a lot of times you end up looking up the tree and getting pelted by acorns, and it just is not a good thing. And that's what preseason's for a lot of people, is chasing these phantoms. They're seeing ghosts out there, I believe. One quarterback saw ghosts, Dennis, and it was that's what's going on right now. A lot of ghost busters, and they're getting busted, and they will get busted at the end of the about January, when they're looking for their check for winning the league, and they find out they didn't win their league, and they'll be collecting tears, Dennis. And that may be my secret name this year, is the collector of your tears. Will be my team name here, because there's going to be a lot of that, and I see a lot of people going to be crying because it's confusing. But I'm staying out of the way. There's a lot of psychological cognitive bias advice that says it's best not to make early decisions and getting anchored by things like that. And so I'm avoiding that this season, deliberately doing that.
And I'm taking a little bit different tact at this. Is I want to keep a really close eye on ADP. And I really like to get deep into how it's actually being utilized in each draft by draft. But I'm only drafting one team at a time, one quarterback redraft, FFPC. We have very unique, it's tight end premium. So tight ends, basically the top tight ends go up at least a round, maybe a round and a half in some cases, versus what they would be going in a regular PPR league. And I'm really trying to stay on the game plan better this year. Last year, drafting a bunch of teams at once, and all late in the season, I let myself get a little bit carried away by worrying too much about diversifying my portfolio in early rounds. And, I grabbed some guys that the game plan said, stay away from. And I didn't stay away from them. I got off of my strategy in some ways. And so by doing this very deliberate, one draft at a time, starting one every 2 weeks, I'm really clued in to the ADP changes that we're seeing. Start of the year back in May, when I first started drafting, Bijan Robinson was number 1 and Gibbs was number 2. They have flip-flopped now. Where Gibbs is going first and Bijan's going second. Chase has been the number one wide receiver, and I think that makes sense based on his past performances and the big weeks that he can produce. But I've had my game plan and I've stuck to it. And I haven't worried, like last year, I worried, if I'm getting too much of a certain wide receiver or running back, I don't want too many shares of that guy. By only drafting one at a time and ignoring past results, treating every draft like it's been my first one, has allowed me to see how the strategy, how the better than zero strategy, which is out there, which I wrote based on our research and our strategies over the years. It's an adaptive style. And what has been amazing to me in these first four drafts, even though I started the same with a couple of the drafts then diverged, whether I went early or on quarterback or waited. And my last draft was the worst starting position I've had in the draft, and that was number 11. And because of that, I needed to change the way I drafted. I could not wait on both quarterback and tight end because the advantage to having the best wide receiver, the best running back was gone. It was not available to me because I was drafting 11th. So I pivoted and I said, what will a tight end first? What will be taking one of the best two tight ends first? How will that change my approach? And I've been very fascinated to see that some of the running backs and some of the backfields that I totally ignored in my previous builds when I was taking running backs and wide receivers pretty early and pretty even, my opinion on those backfields changes. Two backfields in particular: Jacksonville Jaguars, Minnesota Vikings. So in my previous builds, when I got an elite running back, got a couple of them in the early rounds, when it came time to those guys being drafted, I didn't feel like I needed to take a chance on that backfield. But in this premium quarterback, because I took Drake May, who is our number one quarterback right now. That doesn't mean he'll be number one when we get to the bulk of draft season after the Expo. Things might change between now and then. And we need to be able to look at the players each draft as if it's our first draft. But I got Drake May and I got Trey McBride. I got a shot at the top quarterback. I got a shot at the top tight end. So by drafting late, not having that option of JSN or the Sun God, who are two of my prime guys, my safest wide receivers this year, it doesn't mean I necessarily like them over Chase or over Nakua. But Nakua's had some interesting things going on off the field. He's been talking his way into trouble. Does he get his way into trouble? Do we see the Rams defense better this year? They were really not good last year. Does that bring the passing game back to a normal statistical look? And that could hurt Nakua's output. Not saying he's not basically a lock to be one of my top 5 wide receivers, but we're talking top wide receiver. We're talking safest wide receiver in that first round. And so it's led to a completely different build. And I'm okay with that because I'll end up probably having Tootin and C-Rod for the Jaguars. I'll have 2 shots at a starting running back on that team. Might even take LaQuinn Allen late. Haven't decided yet. I don't have to decide yet. I'm not that deep into the draft. And with Minnesota, I'll probably take Mason and Claiborne. In a lot of builds, I might end up with C-Rod with the Jaguars late, or LaQuinn Allen really late, or I might end up with Claiborne on every team late. But when you go elite quarterback, elite tight end, you have to look at your running backs a little bit different. And that's what I'm finding out.
It's always good to shift depending on where you're at. And again, I haven't paid it that much attention, but thinking about patterns, Dennis, I like to kind of map out the patterns of where wide receivers are going in the landscape, and when running backs, when's 12 wide receivers off the board, what round, running backs, when's the first tight end taken, and we know in FFPC's first round, when's the quarterback taken, that's usually Josh Allen, probably in the third. So knowing those patterns, I blend that in to my strategy a little bit, but I haven't even been thinking deeply yet at all. I'm still building data sets and pursuing research questions, Dennis, and thinking about things, and probably thinking too much. And a lot of what I'm chasing down, I may not get to apply, and that's fine. Uh, a lot of times in research, it's always best to have more lines in the water than you realistically can handle, right? Because you'll end up catching some things, and maybe a lot of the lines won't be productive. But I don't know beforehand. I don't have a time machine which lines of inquiry do I need to chase? So I go down these, and again, I'm doing data set builds and getting ready then to have a master data set that then I can explore. Or I have very specific research questions that I explore as well. So I'm kind of back and forth on that. The posters that you and I will present at the expo, hopefully we can find a broom closet to hide in and flip out and hit people in the head with our posters. And, I need a long hook and grab them in like a carnival barker here. So we'll be, I don't know, maybe we should have some treats to give away or
Ooh.
something. I don't know, some suckers or something, because we'll see a lot of those at the expo. No, 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 Dennis, I shouldn't be bad. Bad, bad, Dr. Bush. No suckers at the expo. Okay. But we might hand out some suckers, right? Or some dum-dums, Dennis. We'll see some dum-dums there.
Ooh.
Remember, those are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, we call those candies the bum bum candies in my day. We throw those away and get the Reese's and the good candy bars. And, the old ladies would give us the popcorn balls with, you had to pull the razor blades out, but the
Oh,
popcorn was
yeah.
pretty good. And
Yeah.
what, the strychnine candy bar and stuff, you feed it to your friends across the street. If they didn't die, well, it must be pretty good treats here. And, you map that out as a kid. You have a landscape, you go trick or treat and you run crazy, carry a few eggs in case you need to trick some houses that don't have appropriate, when they're giving out, healthy crap. We don't want healthy crap. We want good stuff. So you have to egg them and whatnot. Our statutes and limitations are off, Dennis. So yeah, we did pour the motor oil on your deer statue in front of your house. Yes, that was us. I can admit that now, because you didn't have, you had apples out in a basket. That's weak sauce. We don't want no damn apples. Anyway, made me angry. So Dennis, that's what I'm doing now, is staying in the data cave. Posting some very probably esoteric deep dive articles and aspects. And it's not the full answers, because I'm not sure anybody knows the full answers, but we have forecasts and predictions, and that's what I'm helping gather. And then I send it to you and let you think about it as well. You did forecasting as a meteorologist, a statistical climatology guy. You understand making those spaghetti plots for your hurricanes and stuff. And that's what we're trying to do, is do that approach. Again, we're chopping the wood, then we're getting the fire, not the other way around, Dennis.
And one of the least understood concepts in fantasy football is this range of logical outcomes for a player. And when you overlay two players sometimes with their highs and lows, and I'm not talking, like, yes, your basic guy could score a 0 or he could set a record. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, what's about the 80 to 85% solution? Where would you be comfortable with about 85% of that player's outcomes falling? That's where I want my high and low to be set. And there's some interesting players this year when you're honest about it. And in fantasy football, sometimes, I hate to inform people about this, but we're not always honest with ourselves about a player that we love. And we're not always honest with ourselves about a player that we hate. And I made a post the other day on Fantasy Football Twitter that got some interesting responses, because I said that this coach speak and the OTA, updates, I'm not so sure, based on over the past several seasons, I'm not sure that we've gotten more good advice out of that coach speak stuff. Remember when Jamar Chase couldn't catch a football in OTAs? And it was all because the ball didn't have the stripe on it like it did in the college game.
Yeah. Remember when CMC was healthy and ready to go?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that season?
Yeah. All right. Remember when Cam Akers was supposed to be the big sleeper pick? He was going at like RB22, and people are like, how can you let a top 10 running back go? Remember how long he lasted on the Rams that year? It's like 3 weeks and he was gone.
Everybody wanted Haskins and not Vidal. Remember, that was the popular choice.
Yeah. So there's always a lot of these things that come out in training camp. Sometimes it's the coach trying to inspire a player. Remember when Bijan Robinson was 4th on the depth chart?
Yeah.
First depth chart, he was 4th. My goodness. They drafted him so high, and he's only 4th best on his own team.
Yeah.
Don't believe the nonsense. And somebody said, oh, you just got to know how to filter it. So I asked the question, how do you know how to filter it? There's so much stuff, but
you ask questions, Dennis, quit it.
Yeah, I know. It's
crazy. Don't ask people questions. That makes them cranky.
I'm a crazy man for asking such a simple question, but it comes right down to it that it's very simple how we use this data. If it's negative about a player that we hate, then we don't filter it. If it's negative about a player that we are high on this year, oh, it's just that OTA crap. It's the coach speak stuff. That's how people filter this nonsense. When the reality is, the best way, the only effect that it has is it changes ADP. That's it. How about remember Bill last year, JCM?
Yep.
We're taking him in the 12th, 13th, 15th round in drafts, and all of a sudden, there starts to be buzz about him in training camp. He ended up going up to the 5th or 6th round. And what did we do? We hopped off that train, right? Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is the cost of a player, the ADP of a player is the only thing that coach speak and OTAs change. How you feel about that player should not change, because we've gotten as much bad advice from that as we've gotten good advice. So I listen to it, I hear it. You can't avoid it. But those coaches have an agenda. The reporter on a team has an agenda. He wants to be the only one who told you this guy was going to be great. But he told you 15 players were going to be great. One of them hit. But it does adjust that ADP. And over the years, you have done such a good job of breaking down ADP and understanding this. And I know you've got some stuff to share with the class today.
Well, this is clubhouse stuff, but I will tell you, I am constructing an ADP based. I'm rebuilding one because I've had it in the past. Trying to put more advanced metrics in with ADP. So you have preseason and then after the season, how many points, and you can look at the change, right? The delta, before and after. And I want to shoehorn in our consistency metrics. I've been doing some of that using statistical methods. I've shared that with Dennis, and he's building secret cheat sheets that we will be using. I hadn't even asked to see them, have I, Dennis? Because like I said, I'm hiding my data. It is not the time to see those cheat sheets yet. It's not the time. But anyway, ADP that's what we use for value, the differences between your opinion, your metrics, and you develop, I hate to use the word feelings, but you develop that based on the metrics, not I have an opinion and let me go see if metrics support that, right? That's anti-science. We're trying to have a hypothesis, and usually my hypothesis is not player specific. I usually like team level, big landscape, top down approaches, right? I'll throw in a nugget. Dennis and I are off, in our secret clubhouse. We were asking the question, what number of running backs on average each year in round 11 or deeper actually turn into something that will get us, say, 4 weeks at 12 PPR points. Turns out it's about 10% ish. And that's an average, folks. That means some year higher, some years lower. Okay. Could be 5%, could be 15. But out of, say, somewhere between 20 and 40, you might have 2, 4, 6, somewhere in that range. And the reason a lot of those get is either the scheme changes, there was some misunderstanding of the public to that, or injury, right? And the first time we drilled deep, it was, a lot of those that really excel are either drafted higher than round 12. They're, 10, 9, 8, probably some, maybe 7, maybe that next suite, right? Those RB3, 4 types, Dennis. We're not talking the deep 5, 6, 7 types that I asked the question about and we're researching. And so injury plays a role, but then scheme changes as well. So whatever you think, folks, 10% is probably the beginning. So if Dennis and I draft five deep shots, right? Logical, i.e., logical from our point of view,
Yes.
versus, we try our logic. If we can get one, Dennis was saying, I'm happy. Well, and I said, Dennis, that's 20%. That's double there. Damn right you're happy when you can beat the public double. You can double if the horse is 2-1 and you can get 4-1, you're damn happy with that. If you can hit 20% on 4-1, you're raking it in or whatever that number is to make a profit. Uh, Man, that's great. That's wondrous. That's how you win at the horse track, right? 10% at 100-1, if you get, one out of 100 or 10 out of 100, man, if you can get 10 out of 100, Dennis, you put 100 bets at 200, that's $200 and you hit one at, 100-1. That's not, but if you can hit 10, that's $1,000, Dennis. That's
Oh, yeah.
what's that, 500%. I'm telling you, the gangsters would break your leg for that interest rate, right? I'm just telling you, people don't realize that if you can double your shots at these deep running backs, 20%, you grab five and you get one, you celebrate. Remember, psychologically, we celebrate losses. We feel them twice as bad as wins.
Oh, yeah.
So we feel sad of the four that we lost. We should reverse that. And that's the hardest thing to do, is to be happy about the 1 out of 5. So that's kind of a target. But folks, you got to figure out what is your targets. Your diary can help. Maybe you're good at picking tight ends. Wouldn't that be nice to know? So you can kind of gauge where the value is for your opinion, right? If your opinion says you can pick that tight end after tight end 20s off the board and you can find that lucky one, that Juwan Johnson or whatever that can give you 4 or 5 great weeks, man, that's great. But you need to know that. So that's why we combine with diary. But anyway, this was a question I applied to Grok, and I use that just to begin to think, not that I'm in blood signing, Dear Grok, I am going to follow your opinion exactly. Here I am, Dr. Bush, in blood. No, that's not what we do. It just gives us more thinking. And so it talks about that. And build your own rankings first, Dennis. You and I have been doing that
Yes.
consistency for quite some time. Bob Lung taught us the way. We hope that we're pushing the torch forward, and I hope others listen to us. They can, come to the expo and say, Dennis, your MVP is good, but I got something even better. I said, well, great. Let's look at your last 3 or 4 years. Let's see your winning checks here. Let me show me a picture of that. Let's see your ROI. And Dennis and I have been making money with our rankings for a long time. And part of that is, and we just talked about Bill. Bill's good at 15 by our rankings. He sucks at 5. And it is, and along the way, you start getting nervous if you have your own rankings. The effort to put in to chop your own wood, Dennis, you appreciate the axe, you appreciate the tree, you appreciate not having to go up the mountain to cut the trees, right? You like level ground. I mean, there's a lot of things you learn. So build your own rankings, or either that or pay some good ones, right? And it's hard to figure that out. But anyway, you're finding that. Then you're finding who's the reaches, who's the falls, where it's after their true worth. They're talking about overlays, Dennis. You and I have been doing that for years, trying to find those at the racetrack. They're
Oh,
worth
yeah.
more than the odds say they are, right? They should be 10 to 1, they're 100 to 1. Man, you can eat that up all day if that's real, right? So if you rank top 15 and it's going at WR 35, or that's a massive discount. But jump off Bill's bandwagon, Dennis, if he gets too high up, and that's what we did. So you got to bounce here, but it started with rankings first. Then that allows you, kind of like a slide rule, it allows you to adjust what's going on. You should never go into the draft looking at the ADP and saying, especially if you got a minute, I wonder if this is a good value. If you're having to ask that, you've done something wrong and you're probably going to lose unless you get lucky, Dennis. You should never be asking that question. You should know. It should be just obvious. Wow, that is a great value. Why? Because I spent hours and days and weeks making my rankings. You do that, you pretty much know it all by heart. You figure out across sites. Now, we don't do that. We play at one site, but if, at some point, Dennis, we may branch into other sites, it would definitely be to our advantage to see what are the patterns. So I do pattern analysis, and I use that for arbitrage to kind of know what I'm walking into. Where are the runs at, right? Where's it get lean? Where's nobody picking running backs? If round 13 is quiet, maybe that's some bargains there that I should pick up, maybe from round 14 and 15, they're going there. Maybe I need to reach a little bit because my value, my rankings say it's okay to take him at 13. It's still a good value. Get a little greedy there. And you have patterns based on rankings, based on our better than zero, perfect better than zero, what we're doing early, middle, and late, Dennis. And we're usually not picking zero hero. We have better than zero. We don't have to worry about that. I do research that just for articles. Just I'm curious. I know some answers because I've done that and got the research. And then we look for dynamic adjustments. If some players getting a little bit in trouble with the law or something, things can get a little crazy until it settles out. So keep your eyes open for that. And I asked the question, Grok said, buy low players. That's okay. Who are these buy low players? And we've got some that I wanted to talk about, but I'm going to stop right here because I'm in professor mode. Turn it off and let Dennis get in Dennis mode here on what I said introduction on our how we blend it all together.
Yeah, and your analysis and how you're breaking down ADP is absolutely perfect because the value of a player is what it's all about. And you need to have a different strategy early in a draft versus late in the draft. Early in the draft, I don't care about losing out. Let's say I'm picking fifth in the draft this year, and the usual cast of characters are gone. So Nakua's gone, Chase is gone, Bijan's gone, Jamar Gibbs is gone. Now, if I was one of those people that was saying, "Oh, I got to have a bully RB," I'm a hero RB guy. I got to get that RB early. I might force an RB pick when the logical pick might just be to take Jackson Smith Najigba and be happy that I've got things locked up. Now, as more players go off the board in that first round, that's when you have to maybe pivot even farther. But you don't understand this unless you understand the ADP patterns. if I don't take a running back or wide receiver in the first round, if I go with a tight end, we're tight end premium, so that makes sense. What does my second round look like? And then what does my third round look like? And the farther you're looking in the draft, the more you have to have clusters of players and not just one or two guys. So I'll always go into it understanding the pattern and saying, okay, I've got my premium tight end. I'm doing great. I come right back and I've got a good, solid wide or running back that I really like. I'm doing good. Now what happens in that third round? And so when I got to the second round of this draft, picking 11th, my feeling was, okay, do I want to go AJ Brown at wide receiver? If I do that, then my running back options are going to be different in round 3. And I might not be happy with those running back options. What if I go running back in the second round? What are my wide receiver options in rounds 3 and 4? So I made the guess. And again, it's just an educated guess because you don't know how people are going to respond. But of course, the news about Olave had just broken in the middle of this early rounds of the draft, that he had this pulmonary embolism. And I don't even know if people know what a pulmonary embolism is. But it sounded bad, right? He's on blood thinners. Oh, he's not practicing. He can't be hit by anybody yet. Well, I don't really want my number one wide receiver hit in OTAs anyway. So I looked at and I said, you know what? I think I got a shot at Olave coming back to me in round 3. And if he's not there, maybe I can get a guy like Ibuka. Maybe I could even get a Devonta Smith. I can get a Zay Flowers. I get Garrett Wilson. Maybe even Rashee Rice will fall to me in that third round. Maybe even Nico Collins. Like, those are my options. So when I start doing the math and I'm thinking, okay, who are guys that could legitimately finish in the top 10 at wide receiver? Because if I'm taking a wide receiver in the first round, I'm thinking, who can finish top 3 at wide receiver? By the time you get to round 3, I'm thinking top 10. If I can get a top 10 finish out of a third round player at running back or wide receiver, I'm ecstatic. And so I've got 3 or 4 guys that legitimately could fall to round 3 at the wide receiver position. I've got none at the running back position. Maybe Josh Jacobs, if people are upset and worried about his off the field stuff. So that's how I use ADP, and I use my rankings to come up with this idea of what's the best pick in. I'm already thinking rounds 3 and 4 before I take my second pick. That's the way ADP can be used to a benefit. Now, last year, we had Chris Olave ranked as, I believe you had him as like your 7th or 8th, and I had him as my 7th or 8th best wide receiver. We were like, wait, and he was going like WR24 to 28.
It was gravy. Yeah, it was gravy.
So, but we knew we didn't have to take him.
No, yeah, I don't take him in the first round.
We didn't take him in the first or second round. We were like,
you didn't have to
could take him 4th or 5th, and I'm plenty happy with that. We took him a healthy number of picks, like 10 to 15 picks ahead of his ADP, and did so with confidence because we were confident in our ratings. We didn't have to take him any earlier than that. And so we could benefit that way. And there's always players like that. Because when I'm looking after the first 3 rounds, I'm mainly starting to look more upside potential than anything else. First 3 rounds, I want some level of comfort. Some of the running backs that I love in the second round, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, especially Chase Brown because he's a little younger. No competition for touches with Cincinnati as far as the primary touches that we really want. He's not going to get 350 touches, but he's going to get probably 300, right? 280 to 320 looks like a good range for him, mainly because they don't like to run their running backs into the ground. I know that from past performances of what they've done. That's enough touches for him to be a top 10 running back this year. I feel really good about his chances of being a top 10, and I just got him in the second round. Same with Olave. That's how you use ADP to your advantage early by saying, if I do this, what comes back to me in that next round? If you are at the far reaches, the number 1 or the number 12 pick, or even like 10 to 12 or 1 to 3, that's a long time before that next pick comes around sometimes, right?
Right.
So you're not going to be accurate. But if I've got 3 or 4 running backs, 3 or 4 wide receivers, maybe 1 quarterback by round 4 that I'm looking at, already picked my tight end, I'm comfortable there. Now I got 3 or 4 guys that I expect could possibly come back. There might be some others that come back that surprise me that I've got rated pretty high, but I've got at least 3 or 4 guys that I really like. That's how you can use ADP to your advantage. And that's the key. Notice I didn't say, oh, he was WR7. It's the 7th guy is coming off the board. I'm going to take him because that's what ADP says. No, I'm going to have a different opinion than ADP. Like Lamar Jackson's a classic case of quarterback this year. Your data doesn't like him. My data doesn't like him. It's not that we don't think he's a great player. It's just his weekly upside consistency. I mean, look what he's done over the last several years. In my MVP data, if I look at him honestly, I have to say, okay, last year he was a 75. The year before that, he was a 141. The year before that, he was a 94. Then he was an 82. Then he was a 100. Then he was a 133. In order to take him as the second quarterback off the board or third, that's where he's going, folks. I need 120 in MVP. I need to be feeling good about that. He's done it 2 out of 6 years. There's some risk involved. The later I can wait on quarterback, the less risky that is. If he was going 5th or 6th round, that's another story. Then maybe I go for that upside. But for him going as early in drafts as he's going right now, he's going pick 64, the second or third quarterback off the board. That's pretty early. That's, we're talking, by the time I get to quarterback 6, I'm feeling a little bit better about a profile like that. But at quarterback 1 or 2, boy, it's what you're giving up at running back or wide receiver. It's not that Lamar Jackson's a bad player. It's just that there's some level of uncertainty attached to him if you look at his performances over the last 5 years. And that's how I like to use ADP. I'm like, I don't want to have to take him too early. That's just not a smart play, in my opinion.
Well, I think, again, trying to hide my data cave, but traditionally, round 1, I was just kind of reading through this Grok's opinion here. It says the best buy low are those who have slight falls. And see, when you use what does that mean, slight falls? When I see that, it's like, does that mean CMC's the second round? Is that a slight? To me, slight sounds like 1 or 2. I just, I'm not sure round one is you're going to get a lot of buy low opportunities. I think everybody starts getting an opinion based on the draft pick where you're at. I think that
Yes.
is really shuffling you to where you're at. In other words, if I got pick three, you know, versus pick 11, like you discussed, that's a different kettle of fish on what's available, right? It's like coming in at 8:30 on the buffet that closes at 9, Dennis. It's getting lean. All those ribs and all the good stuff, those crawfish, they've been in there soaking in that water a little long there. So you got to make some wise choices on what's left on the buffet. And in Louisiana, you got to think about that, Dennis. You just got to think about that. So uh, it has a discussion here, round one, and I'm thinking your draft pick is it should be discussed in there a little bit. So if I was giving you some advice, I would have the pattern down. I kind of know what's coming the next 3, 4 rounds as far as running backs off the board, etc. So those would be some of the questions I have. Round two, it's again this safety concept. I think are better than zero. We're really liking to have some anchor cores in the first two, probably 3 rounds, Dennis. And
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, if some of these people drop, and again, it's, what does that mean, drop? Buy low. We say that, but what does that mean when you're looking? So remember, some of these definitions are really not defined. You need to think about it. I understand mock drafts and stuff allow you to think about it a little bit. To me, I think when I think of the landscape, I start helping me think about some of what is a buy low and what are some of the uh, the things that I worry about. Like when I see Drake London, strong target. I mean, that sounds pretty good. It's we'll see how far but he's going in the second round. I don't think any of these McBride. This is in a non premium situation here. So I just asked a question generically about a PPR one quarterback, no tight end premium. Because in FFPC, McBride is probably gone by the first round. So you need to know kind of in general what's going on. And again, I like to see what the recent patterns are. And to me, that gives me thoughts about it. But I'm not thinking there's a lot of buy low opportunities. In fact, if London or Collins or Henry drop, or even McBride, if he's in the second round, I'm like, did somebody had a car wreck? What, I'm running
Yes.
to the latest news to make sure that
Yes.
something hadn't happened, to that. So again, it's more the safety here. Somebody like a Hampton, though, with the injury issue coming back and Jeremiah Love, what are we getting here? How, you've got to make your decisions. It's like you've got to consider and juggle your thinking here about what's going on. And those two are an example of kind of unknowns a little bit, Dennis. We're not sure what's going, unless I was there watching him, is he grimacing every time he's doing a hard cut on the practice field? I mean, that would be nice to know, but we don't know that, right? Or is Jeremiah Love, is he gelling with the team right now? I don't know. I know there are people that are going to give us their opinion, but I wish I was there. But so is there somebody you trust for OTA information? I haven't heard it. You get a lot of these different takes, and it's hard to go through the hype. But again, the first couple rounds to me is more safety. I'm not sure I'm finding great bargain. I don't know if there are great bargains there. I think three, four, five, especially four, six is where and it says exploitation suite. This was Alave for us. Some of these other ones over the years, this is usually where everybody is starting to look here. So I think in some ways the safety, then you're kind of going that next suite here, rounds 4 to 6. So I think you've got kind of opinions about what's going on here, and then you're shifting to this. It's like gears, Dennis. You have first gears. If
Yes.
people have ever
Yes.
driven a stick shift, I don't know if I don't know. Do kids even do that? I remember learning to do that as a kid. I'd get out in the parking lot and learn how to, do the clutch and all that. It's tricky. And now, I kind of miss that. I almost wish I hadn't done that in 30 years, 40 years, Dennis. I should get me a sports car and do that here. There we go. Maybe with the winnings this year, I'll buy me something. Anyway, that is the exploitation sweet spot here. So they give names, and you can look at some of these names. I don't think you'll buy low on Josh Allen. I think
No,
Olave
no.
last year was his bargain. You may get, like you say, a few issues. George Pickens, Higgins. It's hard to see some of those guys falling, but we have our rankings. We know what we're thinking. I'm liking Chase Brown. I like Kyron Williams too. So I'm watching here. Brock Bowers will be gone in tight end premium, way gone by then.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah.
that's not real. And they say, who are we worried about? Brees Hall, Travis Etienne. I don't know if I'm worried about those. Anyway, I'm gonna stop and let you comment on the early part of the draft.
Yeah. First 3 rounds, I do worry about risk. My risk tolerance is quite low in the first 3 rounds. By the 7th round, all I care about is upside. If everything goes right for this player, where does he finish? What is his MVP upside look like? So my way of looking at players in the first 3 rounds and from round 7 on are different. Now, you notice I left out 3 rounds, 4, 5, and 6. That's where the it's like a good stew. You might not put the same amount of ingredients in the crock pot the same, every time, but what your prime ingredients are in the first 3 rounds. I want a really good roast in there, right? I want good quality meat. I don't want the discount meat that was sold out of a trailer in the parking lot. I want to spend a few bucks on a good roast, good round steak, good meat that is in there. And then, the later picks of what to put in are different. 4 through 6, you might change it up every once in a while. But I really don't care about position. The position is not the primary driver, because we need to be adaptive in our drafts. So if between rounds, my round 2 and my round 3 pick in that draft that I just told you about, if 15 wide receivers would have come off the board and the best value was to go running back again, I'd have no problem finishing the first 3 rounds, tight end, running back. So I didn't care about position at that point. I'm still looking. First 3 rounds, I'm just looking at the best player. Who's going to give me an edge? at that position. Who's the best player available right now? Do I have a chance at a guy who's going to finish number one at his position or number two at his position? That's going to be the driving factor. But I'm also looking to some level of safety. And that's why, even though I've got Chase Brown and Henry ranked about the same, if I've got a decision to make, I'm probably going with the younger guy, who also happens to be the better pass catching guy. And this is PPR. But those first 3 rounds and then round 7 to the end are handled very differently. 4 through 6, it's a little different every draft. Some of the guys I really like, who I think will continue to go in that 4th round, I like Egbuka. Yes, there is a danger there because maybe he isn't the primary target. Maybe it's Godwin is the primary target. But I like what Egbuka did before Evans showed up and before Egbuka had the hamstring injury last year. So I think his upside is really good. I also, in the 5th round, I really like DeAndre Swift this year. I think he could have a monster year, and he had a really good year last year. He could be even better this year. I have Rome Odunze and Luther Burden ranked about the same. I can get Odunze a round to a round and a half later. So I kind of like that. If I'm going to go wide receiver with the Bears, I might take Odunze because he's a little cheaper and he offers the same benefit. Then in round 6 is the first quarterback I'm looking at, which is Drake May. Do I want him or don't I? I might have that decision to make in the first 6 picks in the 6th round. And I'm okay if he goes a pick or 2 before me, because that makes my decision making a little easier. Because there's other guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Carnell Tate, whose upside is terrific. Tucker Kraft, if I don't have a tight end yet. His upside is terrific. Maybe even Laporta. But that's the idea. 4th through 6th is kind of like, it's the smorgasbord. I'm taking first 3, I'm taking the safe picks off the buffet that I know will be good. 4th through 6, I get a little bit, I'll try maybe that spicy dish that I've never tried, see how that goes with this pick. And then 7 on to the end, I just care about upside. 4th through 6, the upside versus the safety has to be managed in each and every round in that 4th through 6th space, because you're running out of safe players. Yeah. If all of a sudden Olave gets pushed down to that 4th round, and I haven't taken him already, obviously, in the 3rd if he's pushed down, I think he's a good late 2nd, early to mid 3rd guy. If he gets pushed down to the 4th round, that makes my decision easy, even if I have 2 wide receivers already. I would rather have a guy who could finish top 5. If I can get one of those in the 4th round, I'm taking it every time. So each draft is a little bit different, but those 4th through 6th rounds are very key. And then it's just taking your shot at upside from there on out.
Again, I think starting back, getting your rankings, getting the pattern that you're going into, and then where are you comfortable kind of breaking these kind of substrata? I'm going to call it variations that you apply, or let's say focus on, right? The better than 0 has some focus to it, and we focus depending on where we're at in the draft. I mean, certainly draft pick, it changes that focus. So there is some skill to shifting. In other words, you don't want to apply rounds 1 to 3 in rounds 7 and 9. That is not where you easily or take. Oh yeah, everybody's safe in here. You shouldn't be thinking that. You change your focus, and Grok says load up on talent. And We say load up on value, and obviously value means they have talent. So to me, I think that definition, I think I would change it to load up on our rankings value and the build that we've built up to that point, right? If you've, there's this concept of balance. Are you okay with being unbalanced? In other words, in the first 6 rounds, can you take 4 running backs and 2 wide receivers? Is that feeling like that's a good thing or not? You need to think about what is working for you. Have you been successful with being out of balance? Because a lot of people won't take 3 running backs in a row in your league. They will mix and match. They will do RB, RB, WR, or they'll do WR, WR, RB, or they'll do, WR, RB, WR. I mean, they will mix and match. Coming out of round 3, there's going to be a lot of variation already, and people are already starting to get stuck in a build. If you take say you take Drake May and Burrow is still there, your next pick, I mean, are you going to take 2 back to back? You just need to start thinking of some of these situations. You should never be tricked. And that's why I use slow drafting, because I'm getting old, Dennis. I need some time to savor these picks, right? And you and I will text each other, and we will, you're doing your draft, and we will talk it out. And sometimes we come up with, I'd lean this way. Sometimes, Dennis, I don't know, or it's a flip a coin. I see this, I see that. A lot of times I will say, Dennis, are you looking for kind of the upside gamble, or you needing something safe? In other words, I don't know your build
Yes,
up to
yes.
that point. Kind of what do you think you need at this point? Are you needing a little bit more safety or a little bit more gamble upside? I mean, that could break the tie for you. There are lots of ways to tie break, and I don't see those strategies out there, Dennis. In fact, I don't know if people are even thinking about strategy the way you and I do. I don't know. I, a lot of times, most I see are player specific. They're, here's why he's the best, or these are the worst, or here's 3 guys. I love this one, hate this one. And to
Yes.
me, it's more complex than 1 or 2 players and you're debating. It's just a deeper draw here. So I would urge you to develop some plans and think about it. Do your own rankings, have some strategy notes, and overlay your projections with what's out there, and see if you can find your own value, and put them in your diary, Dennis. Put them in your diary. And so right now, I think you wanted to talk about my research on the targets. So I'll let
Yes.
you end the ADP, and let's jump in the targets real quick, and then we got to move on.
Yeah, the whole key, folks, is have a game plan going into the draft, but be willing to adjust it based on what gets pushed down to you. And Professor's right. A lot of times we'll be texting back and forth when we don't have a sure, a lot of times we'll get to a point in a draft and we know who we're taking.
Yeah,
And we'll still reach out quite often and say, hey, look,
right.
here's the 3 guys that I'm thinking about. What do you think?
Yeah.
And sometimes the
And a lot of
professor
times we're
gets,
asking questions. Dennis, I ask you questions. I'm
yeah,
trying to pin you down a little bit.
yeah, it's exactly it. It's where are you now? Where's your balance? If it's late rounds, if it's ninth, 10th, and later, where is your balance?
And a lot of
What's your
times I'll get Dennis to kind of reevaluate why we're even
yes,
picking these people. What are
yep,
you trying to accomplish here? And that's
yes,
why I think finding a partner, Dennis, somebody that you can play off of, especially if they have different uh, expertise. Dennis is my pattern guy. Okay. He spots things. I'm a little slower because I'm kind of top down. It takes me a little bit, but Dennis will call my attention, right? It's like an artist. My wife's an art major, or got her BFA before she went to law school, and she will sometimes look at something and say, the perspective is wrong, or they
Yes.
didn't, the shadows, the way they did that is wonky, because she has that pattern. She can look at an piece of art and see whether what she likes or what she doesn't like. And I just, one funny story, Dennis, there is what is it, woodchuck apple cider. There's a picture. I don't know if you've seen that drink. It's an alcoholic apple cider. It's called woodchuck. I don't know if they sell it up north, but it's woodchuck. And it has a picture of a woodchuck on a stump with an apple. And Becky hates it because the way they drew it, there's no way that's natural. The woodchuck would not be stuck like that. She says the perspective is all wonky and wrong. It's like AI does something. It's like, that's not real. Becky knows what a woodchuck, in her head, she knows what she would draw the woodchuck on the stump with the apple on the ale bottle. She knows how it should be. And if they're listening, I'm telling you, your perspective is wrong. Because every time I would go get one at this deli, Dennis, she would look and it would irritate her, you know,
Oh,
and it was funny to catch her. So her pattern, spider sense, was just tingling the whole time. And Dennis has that as well. So sometimes I need to draw Dennis's attention back to, like, Dennis, why did you pick, why are we at this point that we're even having this? What are you thinking about? Because a lot of times I'm not sure, and I need some deeper thinking before I apply some of the things I'm thinking about.
and a lot of times, if I tell you, okay, we're round, let's say we're round 9, okay, and we've done the team analysis.
Yes,
You
sir.
feel really good. You've already taken Drake May. You've already taken a pretty good tight end. You're feeling pretty good, but you're saying to me, "Oh man, I'm a little weaker at running back than I'd like to be." That that'll lead me to saying, is so and so, is in this case, is Rashad White on the board?
Right,
Is he available? It's Jordan Mason
right.
there, and it'll be like, oh yeah, White's gone, but Mason's there. Okay, take Mason, and then come back later and start thinking about Claiborne later in the draft. That would be, so the strategy is, if you're weak at a position, oh, I'm really good at wide receiver. Here's the top 4 guys I got already, and I'm like, holy crap, you're in great shape. That 5th wide receiver you're going to barely use. That's when you start loading up on a position, on running back. When you've got your top 4, you've got your best, your top quarterback, your top tight end, and you're solid everywhere except running back. Hey, I took a couple of chances here. Well, you take a couple more chances. That's how you answer it when it comes to your team, because there's not going to be a perfect draft. Okay, it just isn't going to be. Now, there'll be drafts that you like a lot more than others, but every draft that you exit, when you are done with that draft, you have a playoff team if you don't screw it up, or if injuries don't just consume too many of your top players. But we've already built the strategy to avoid mistakes by having layers of players and
Layers
the
of
right
players.
backups. So we're already minimizing our bad luck and maximizing our good luck. That's when you walk away from a draft and you say, you know what? this is pretty good. My very first draft this year, I waited too long on quarterback. Didn't like the results. So I went with 3. Like, I'm going to try to Frankenstein together, but I do have Tyler Shuck, who I really like this year, and I got him so cheap. But I'm stronger at running back and wide receiver because I waited at quarterback. There's always a trade off, but you could take that weakness and turn it into a strength with good strategy. And one of the ways early on, Professor, that I'm going to be playing the safety game is
Mhm.
at wide receiver. And it has to do with this target research
Yeah.
because I always knew, it's obvious. The more targets you get, the more likely you are to score. That's common sense. I didn't realize the difference in points per game
Yeah.
was so dramatic.
Yeah. This is, I investigated this a little bit. And yeah, 19 points for 9 or more targets versus less than 7 targets, 10. Dennis, that's double.
It's
And
crazy.
so this is 2025. So it was only 7, the average. Now, again, this is average. Not all 7 were doing this, but as an average, 13, 20. And then, the thing with Grok is they're lazy. I want, yeah, I want all this data. It just says similar trends. They applied a Nova statistic here on these 3 groups, and it's very, it's basically not by chance. It's real. Tukey says it's real as well. Pairwise comparison. I use that method. Last 5 or 10 years, Grok claims it's the same thing. And uh, I mean, it says obviously talent, scheme, and quarterback play. I've gotten other inquiries that quarterback play and rushing versus pocket. There's some other secrets. I'm not, this is not tell all today because I mean, the good news reason I can do this, Dennis, because we know only 3 or 4 people want to really learn to chop wood out of about 10,000 or more that could be listening, but and won't, and that's fine because the collector of tears will collect this year. The other 11 in my league, I will take their tears and their money, so that's good. And so, anyway, this whole thing is, and I think it set this bar at 9+ targets is a hallmark. And I asked the question, okay, who is that? And you mentioned one, Dennis, Carnell Tate, Tetra McMillan, a bouquet you mentioned, and Evans. There's
Yes.
one that I kind of, he's kind of post hype. We forgot about him, at least I did. Of course,
Yes.
remember, I'm in my data cave. So, as of June 12th, this is what the ones that could be these guys in this group. So, here's some secret plays here. This is the kind of sleeper draft list that I like to see based on something here. And again, Joe Orsino and some of these other ones, apparently some other people there's multiple people that are already on top of this. And that's fine. I'm a PhD professor. I read other people's work. That's fine. Doesn't mean I'm a dummy or something. I mean, fine, y'all. You other folks, you guys that are referenced, y'all keep doing it. I will ride along because there's so much noise. People won't be able to figure out the noise from the reality, Dennis. And that's what our pattern stuff that you do and my deep stats allows me to do. We can blow away that San Francisco fog and see the beautiful Golden Gate Bridge. And that is the path to our winning and collecting more money so we can take our wives on vacations and make them happy so they will put up with us again while we're Basically, down south, the guy, everybody goes to deer camp, and the women say we're deer camp widows. Ours are fantasy football widows. They don't see us during the season, so we have to share treats. We have to give back to Pharaoh so that they're happy with us and they don't off at our head. Right? The Queen of Hearts will take our head off here. So we know, Dennis, where our bread is buttered. And so we're making money so our wives can be pampered accordingly. But here we go, Dennis. You can take a look, some deeper dives, and I share this with you. And if I get a chance, I might share it. But I've got other questions. I just hadn't answered, hadn't done it yet. So I'll stop here and let you comment on this and then probably wind this show up.
Yeah, here's the key is from every piece of data like this, because this is significant, folks, this passed statistical test, this passed the scientific method.
Yes.
It's real. This data is real. So the question is, how do we find the guys that are going later in the draft that could have more of these 9 target games? And I like looking at the data and saying, okay, last year, what did they do for the guys that aren't rookies? And Roma Dunze had a little edge on Burden when it came to those 9 target games. Egbuka did well. Evans did well last year in his healthy games. So, and McMillan did as well. So I look at all those guys and you're looking at where they're going in the draft. And I can get 2 or 3 of them. So why wouldn't I lean into getting 2 or 3 of those? Well, people will say, well, Evans, he could get injured. Yes, anybody can get injured. Malik Neighbors got hurt last year. You don't get a better, fitter, young player than Neighbors, and he missed almost the whole season. Don't worry about injuries. Yeah, factor it in a little bit if it's a guy who's, not healthy right now. Mike Evans is healthy right now. He's ready to go. The only knock against him is he's old. Who cares? If he gives you 8 good games at his draft position right now, he's a gift. Give me 8 games to start with him, and I'll figure out what to do with the other half of season.
Right.
But that's the way. And again, if he was going top 3 rounds, I don't think that way. But the later you're going in the draft, the more I don't care about the downside. I only care about the upside. And he is a good candidate to get 9 targets. He's a good candidate to be a good red zone target with San Francisco. And we know Purdy knows how to hit those red zone targets.
Right.
So, and how do you then adjust your strategy? If you pick an Evans and you're like, oh, I'm worried about him getting hurt, take Stribling, the rookie, late.
Kind of a handcuff concept.
Almost like a handcuff concept. How do you worry about Egbuka if he's not going to do? Maybe Egbuka, well, maybe he doesn't hit that 9 targets. Okay, then take Godwin later in the draft. Now I got 2 chances on a good passing yardage team.
Oh.
And the worst case is I might end up playing both of them. Because he got 2 wide receivers, he got 2 flex positions. If it's a good matchup for Tampa, I'll play 2 players. I'll play 2 of their wide receivers. I'll take a shot at it. It's not like I'm taking a shot with 2 bad players. I'm taking a shot at 2 guys that have a history of being able to put 9 targets up in a game. Earn 9 targets in a game. Those are the kinds of guys I want to bet on. And that's the strategy move that you make if you pick one guy and you're worried about him not being the guy. Pick a second guy from that same team. Again, if the ADP makes sense. And with both of those cases, it makes perfect sense. And you're like, well, I don't want Stribling because he's a rookie. Look how rookies do in the second half of the year, rookie wide receivers especially. Would you have liked to have Burden at the end of the season last year?
Like Michael Wilson. Yeah.
Michael was.
Yeah.
There's guys that are situational plays
Yep.
that make sense to have on your team. Marvin Harrison Jr. could be a target hog if he can stay healthy. The concept is you're not reaching, you're going upside. There's a big difference between reaching and looking at the upside. If I look at the upside for 5 players from round 6 to 10, okay, I'm taking 5 players there, right? If I charge for the upside in those guys, and I'm only right 3 out of 5, I'm in really good shape.
Right.
If I'm only right 2 out of 5, I'm still doing fine because those are my flex plays. I don't have to get WR10 production out of that. I just need a guy who's going to give me some good games. So that's the difference in where you're looking at ADP. But that target data really got me thinking, and now I'm looking at that and saying, instead of just averaging.
And Dennis, the base rate of wide receivers last year was 12%.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I like those kind of numbers. So just realize, folks, you're most likely not getting those by random. So if you just randomly flip a coin and pick one, it's probably not right. Basically 1 out of 10, so 9 are duds compared to the one. So there are rare bargains. It is worth your time mid-June to start researching that kind of thing. Obviously, running backs, there's same thresholds that you need to research and listen to some of the stuff we've done. So now's the time to build your nest and then feather it with these rare players. And that's who you want on. Imagine having 2 of these cats on your team. Wow, that would be nice. I would love that.
And if I'm at a point in the draft where I have to choose between 2 of these imperfect players with good upside, I'm taking the one on the best team. If I can't separate 2 guys at wide receiver, I'm taking the best quarterback. I'm taking the offense that passes more. That's the way you maximize your success with these players that they're going later in the draft for a reason, because the level of uncertainty is there. You're already getting paid to take a chance at that point in the draft. You might as well make it a smart chance. And by the way, with Egbuka last year, how about 6 games with 9 or more targets?
Nice.
That's pretty good. That's a third of the season on a year he was playing most of the second half of the season with a bum hamstring.
Yep.
How about 10 games with 7 or more?
Nice.
That's the kind of gamble I will take every day of the week. And Godwin, when he was healthy, had only 1 9 or more target games. So this idea that Chris Godwin will muscle out Egbuka for target share, it's possible that both get 7 or 8 and they don't hit that 9 threshold. But if I've got to bet on a player, I might bet on Egbuka because he was able to do that. Even in a few of the weeks, he was able to get 7 or more targets when Mike Evans was playing. That's pretty good. So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. Lots of interesting stuff for you to take a peek at. Check out the AI versus the professor articles, folks. It will give you some answers, but it'll give you more questions for you to inquire about. Head on over to the sportsaffiliation.com. Check out our sister podcast, The Data Lab, and come on back here next week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks.